All right, we are back and we're ready to add our tones. So what I'm going to do first is just put a light tone right over my shadow shapes. So here's one, and it's just one flat tone at this point. It's amazing what one flat tone can do in an instant to even create that illusion, the three-dimensionality. So I'm not even going to stop at the border. I'm just going to add this same tone into the cast shadow here. So no difference. See, I'm going into the cone, into the shadow. I'm not differentiating at this point. They are one tone in the same tone. Okay. Just for now. Okay. I think I'm going to give it a world to live in. If you notice the photograph that I sent you, it's a little hard to see in this particular image. But if you look from your photo reference, there's a little separation of the ground plane there. Draw through right to there. And I'm going to ghost that down even a little more because it's barely perceptible, although I could make that separation of the background and the ground plane more prominent. Again, I can control the values on here. Okay, so there is just the basic lay-in of my shadow shapes. This is as basic as you can get. I'm just making this a little more solid. It did not quite have the solidity that I was looking for there. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and think about our white, adding the white. So I'm going to ghost down a little bit more of this edge. I might come back and redefine it, but just to give me that option, I'm going to do that. Okay, so and again, I'm going to keep this zone between maybe my central axis and the shadow, right, the form shadow there. I'm going to keep that zone of gray paper. And I can just slowly add. I'm just going to slowly add with some marks. I just have to lay it in with marks because, again, I cannot blend this. And I don't want to go too hard too soon. So I'm just going to create a light layer. And notice I am going, I'm using my pencil in the direction of the angle of the cone. And then as I get towards the middle, I can start to straighten out those marks. And I'm kind of using that central axis. I could go over that central axis just a little bit. I'm not tied to that central axis as my hard stop, but I'm thinking this area between this side of the cone and my central axis right there definitely gets a light treatment. So I'm definitely going with that idea. And I am definitely taking these strokes that are closest to that outer edge, and I'm following that directionality. And as they start to get closer and closer to the central axis, I can begin to straighten them out a little more there. Until maybe about right there. Maybe I'll cross that central axis just a little bit. I am getting pretty sharp point right up there with my white. Again, that's an area of tight, hard contrast. Right there. Okay, so I'm just going to build some tone. And I am going more linearly. I'm using hatched lines. Just kind of going down the form as if I were going down, 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 down. Start to straighten out as I get to the middle, towards the middle. That's what I'm thinking about. As I get to the edge, I'm going more diagonally. Okay, pulling them all the way down to my base, right? All the way down, 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 down. Down here. I want to make sure I'm getting that white pencil everywhere. I don't want to be gapping it. I don't want there to be gaps. Okay. Now, I can also go around. So I can go as if I'm going around, 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 and I'm kind of curving these lines. But I'm keeping them mostly from the central axis this way. Again, I don't have a smudge factor. I can't smudge these, so I'm going to have to build some gradation with just marks. And right now, I'm just using a fairly steady, even pressure. I'm not pushing really hard. So I come back this way, start to straighten again as I get to the middle. I'm going to come around this way again. I can make my marks this way. I could come in with some hatching as well. But what I want to do is focus on now creating a little more light on this side of my cone, which means I'm going to have to probably begin pushing a little harder on my mark making. So I'm thinking, okay, I can push a little harder and go across the form this way, across, kind of curving it, kind of like this is curved, right down there. Just at the edge. A little more pressure. Or I can come down this way. And I'm just going to start to push a little bit more pressure at the edge. And I want to make sure that there's not chunks of gray paper showing through. So this one I can start to push just a little harder out here. It's almost like I'm taking my white pencil and doing the opposite of what I did here. So it kind of comes down this way. So skinny up here and kind of creates almost a mirrored shape over here with my white pencil. So just taking this shape and just mirroring it over here. And now I need to make sure that I take maybe some cross contours and make sure there's not a hard white edge in there. So I'm just kind of pulling out from that area that I did right here. I'm going to pull out. Maybe I need to add a few lines going down this way. But I'm going to try to now dissipate some of this white line. And as I start to get towards my shadow shape here, I'm going to start maybe just creating a few white marks as I get nearer that shadow's border, but not too many. I'm going to keep that really, really light in there, which means I might need to come back, add maybe a little bit more over here, maybe even a little more over in here. But I want my lightest, darkest, most pressure to be at this edge, and it starts to get right up into that tip. And that's okay. That tip is really, there's a lot of white and sharp pencil there. Okay. All right, so let me come back this way. Okay, so there we go here. All righty, I think that's coming together a little bit. Might need to get some cross contours in there, especially if you've got chunks of gray paper. So I'm just going to come over this a little bit. Okay. All right, just kind of come over it, make sure it's kind of blending this way. I'm even taking my marks from this side and just lightly pulling them towards the shadow. Okay. Pull it towards the shadow. All right, I think, I don't know if it's showing up on the camera. Okay. I think so. So can't really blend, maybe a little tiny bit. I don't think so. Maybe if I had my blending tool I might, but I'm allowing a lot of the pencil to kind of have a hatching, almost a hatching kind of a look to it. So I think I'm ready to just kind of go on now for a little bit and start to work in my shadows here. So the main thing I want to do is darken this shadow here. Shadow, shadow, shadow all the way. So I'm going to make sure it's quite a bit darker than the shadow on the cone. I'm not going to worry about my edges just yet. Okay, just kind of let it come out this way. I guess I am a little bit thinking of these edges out here, but they are going to be soft, so I could come back and tighten up some edges. Okay. All right. Let's do that. Also, I need to make sure this is not a hard edge, and I drew it in pretty dark, so I'm just going to come back and just lighten up this edge so it's not a harsh edge in there. I don't want it to be a sharp line. I'm going to come back and just kind of soften it. I'm going to go across contours this way. And I am keeping the border of the shadow just a little bit darker until I get up towards the top of the cone, and then everything kind of pinches into dark right up there. It all gets pretty dark up there. And then as I come down, I'm going to try to keep the border of the shadow right in here just a little darker, but I also have to maintain that angle. So maybe I'll use some hatching, directional contours coming this way. Whoops, getting a little bit too much separation there with my shadow. But I'm going to leave this area as the reflected light by just coming in and working a little bit more of the border of the shadow right there. Okay, all right, so I'm going to take a little step back and then come back and finalize it with maybe a few sharper edges, maybe a little bit in the background, kind of just clean it up. Okay, so we'll meet back here to finish everything up in our drawing. Okay, see you soon.